Hello, and welcome to yet another edition of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale history, where today I will be looking at another stage. Since we've now covered Ratchet & Clank and Kratos, let's look at the stage that brings their games together, Metropolis. Metropolis was a central location for much of the Ratchet & Clank series, making appearances in the first game, Up Your Arsenal and Tools of Destruction. Metropolis is the home of Captain Qwark and seemingly the adopted home for Ratchet & Clank themselves, although there are several other locations that could also lay claim to being their home too. A towering city of wonder, Metropolis made its first appearance as the third official level of Ratchet & Clank after the prologue, where the duo travelled to planet Qwark in the hope of finding Captain Qwark at Big Al's robot shop, and instead ending up with the helipack upgrade that we talked about way back in Ratchet's video. Its layout is fairly typical, taking on a retro future architectural style, making it appear like the imagined version of a future city from a 1950s sci-fi comic. It's an obscenely high city filled with skyscrapers and elevated walkways built seemingly miles above the planet's surface. It was also very extravagant, especially in Tools of Destruction, where everything appeared to be gold-plated and extra shiny. The general layout of the stage appears to be based on a mixture of Ratchet & Clank and Tools of Destruction. The general feel of it is reminiscent of when you first entered Metropolis in the first game, while the gold-plated walkways and the Captain Qwark statue appear to be straight out of Tools of Destruction. Speaking of that statue, who exactly is Captain Qwark? In the first game, Clank heard of a threat to the safety of the galaxy and set out to find Captain Qwark, a known superhero. Throughout the course of the game, however, it turned out that Qwark was less of a real hero and more of a vain attention seeker who made himself appear to be a hero through good PR. He made appearances in every game after that and gradually just became known as a bumbling fool with an inflated ego. Sometimes he helped the duo, although it was debatable how useful his help was.
Oh no, we're gonna die! We're gonna die! Oh, good thing I'm wearing clean underwear! Will you shut up? We are not gonna die!
He made his home in Metropolis, which is why there's a statue of him erected in the city, and this statue and Qwark himself both make appearances in the version of the city in PlayStation All-Stars. His role here is mostly posing and getting himself attacked by the matchup, but we're not talking about that yet, because we have a lot to cover. In Ratchet & Clank, level design was typically circular, with mission objectives being at the end of long paths that had shortcuts back to the start of the level. In Metropolis, for the main objective, this shortcut was a lift that remained suspended when you first entered the level, but once you reached the end of the path you could take this lift down to the start again. Other lifts appeared in the level as well, and in typical futuristic fashion they were all hover lifts, being little more than platforms that floated up through cylinders. This seems to be the inspiration for the central platform in Metropolis in PlayStation All-Stars, which is also a floating circular platform that rises up like a lift. But Tools of Destruction introduced a new way of getting around: the jump pads. These were triangular patches on the floor that flash green. Jumping while standing on these launched Ratchet up into the air, where he would flail about until he landed in a new area. These same jump pads appeared in PlayStation All-Stars, and jumping while standing on them has the same effect. They launch your character high into the air, although this time you have more control. I'm not entirely sure what their purpose here is though. So throughout Ratchet & Clank you could find a variety of different boxes. There were generally 4 varieties, the first being a simple crate. Breaking this with your wrench or other weapon would reveal bolts, the currency for the Ratchet & Clank universe. That's basically it. The second box was an ammo crate. Breaking this would reveal ammo. Obviously. The third box was explosive and usually contained bolts like the basic crate, however this had to be broken from a distance or nudged lightly to start a countdown, which would cause the crate to self-destruct. Standing too close when this crate exploded caused Ratchet to take damage, so don't do that. The fourth crate was, well, maybe we'll save that for the items video, shall we? A stack of the basic crates appears in Metropolis and PlayStation All-Stars. You can't interact with the initial crates, but it is possible to interact with crates later on that move in on the conveyor belts. However, instead of breaking them open for bolts, you can break them open for items, which makes them much more like the ammo crates in their execution. Sometimes exploding crates will come out instead, and they act the same way. Touch them to set the timer for self-destruction, or attack them with a long-range attack since the explosion causes you to lose AP. Other elements of the stage don't appear to be from Metropolis originally, but potentially are based on things in other stages in Ratchet & Clank. Much of this is speculation and could be wrong, but I did my best to match these elements to the original games. There were numerous levels throughout Ratchet & Clank which featured conveyor belts, although the closest Metropolis got was an escalator in the first game, trains in the first and the third, and a grind rail in Tools of Destruction. However, conveyor belts did appear in a level that could be selected alongside Metropolis, Outpost X11 on planet Iridia. One section of this level featured an area dominated by conveyor belts. It's possible that this was the inspiration inspiration for the conveyor belts in All Stars. Although other levels had conveyor belts, the fact that Iridia is selectable at the same time as Metropolis makes it seem like a likely candidate. The platforms and extra rooms guarded by laser gates are possibly based on elements of the Blackwater City level on planet Rilgar, also in the first game. A section of this level had a maze of laser fences, and the final area had small side rooms blocked by lasers until certain conditions were met. The fact that these rooms move in and out of the stage may be referencing the assault course that featured in the original Metropolis, which was a platforming section with lots of moving walls and sliding blocks, and beating it netted you the use of the swing shot device, which became a permanent fixture of Ratchet's arsenal. Finally, the computers in the stage don't seem to be based on anything in particular from the games. They seem to be referencing the fact that computers appear frequently throughout the Ratchet and Clank universe due to it being all futuristic and stuff. And that about covers everything, I believe, so on that, let's take a look at the music.
Quickly center the camera, just tap.
In Greek mythology, the Hydra was a many-headed serpent that acted as one of Heracles' labours. For every head of the Hydra that was removed, two would grow in its place, and Heracles defeated the beast by burning the neck stumps after chopping off the heads. In some versions of the myth, the Hydra had a single immortal head that was essentially in charge of all the other heads. In some versions of the myth, this head was not so immortal, but was heavily protected by the other heads, and was very difficult to remove, which was good, because removal of this head killed all the others. This isn't the generally accepted telling of the tale, but that didn't stop this element being incorporated into God of War's Hydra. At the beginning of the first game in the series, Kratos battled his way through ships in the Aegean Sea, fighting off monsters and demons and ultimately the Hydra itself. While some versions of the Hydra myth state that the beast had at least 9 heads, the God of War version only had 3. Kratos defeated the 2 slave heads as he battled through the fleet, but they grew back. Eventually, Kratos faced off against the beast in a boss battle with all 3 heads, and Kratos had to stun the small heads to take on the main head and ultimately take down the monster in a weird sort of alternate version of the original myth. It was a tricky boss if you didn't know what you were doing, but it wasn't too challenging beyond the basic puzzle of it. The Hydra also makes an appearance in Metropolis, bursting through the city and causing havoc and sending Captain Qwark flying. The Hydra will attack the stage randomly, swiping at the stage in a similar manner to its attacks in God of War. But there's an interesting thing to note here. When Captain Qwark returns and climbs onto the Hydra's head, his movements are actually very notable. You see, bosses in God of War were often taken out using quick-time events initiated by pressing circle when the boss was significantly weakened. When Kratos faced off against the second individual head, the way he defeated it involved almost being eaten by the Hydra before he climbed onto the head and stabbed its eye. Aside from the eye stabbing, this is the exact same thing Qwark does in Metropolis. It's hard to believe that this is a coincidence, so I'm calling it a specific reference. There's another little thing we should talk about too. Throughout the God of War series you can find various large chests that Kratos can prise open. They came in different colours and would release orbs of the respective colour. Green orbs would replenish health, blue would replenish magic, yellow would contribute to Kratos' rage special meter, and red orbs could be used to enhance Kratos' abilities. One of these orb chests actually appears in Metropolis, although it's very rare. It can be broken open for AP orbs, similar to how the original chest could be opened for ability enhancing red orbs, but good luck catching it. And that's everything. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll catch you next time. Stay tuned.